We have with us MIT professor and the founder of Handprinter. So you can see, check it out at handprinter.org. Gregory Norris, who's going to talk to us about carbon handprint. So please, Greg, the stage is yours.
Thank you, and it's great to be with everyone here. I'm going to use a few slides just to share some ideas, and I'll start, as Daniel mentioned, I'll start with the introducing the idea of the carbon handprint. I suspect everyone here is familiar, but I'd like to give you some ways of thinking about this that you may find useful in your own communications with others. And then I'll end by talking about a synergy that we think exists between Handprinter and Fairforce that I'm excited to explore. So a bit like we just heard, a bit of a invitation for brainstorming and ideas and collaboration. I think that one of the key, let me say as background, just to add to Daniel's quick introduction, that, and here I'll use the full screen mode. I've been working in footprinting and life cycle assessment now for over 20 years. And I've spent more and more time recently trying to help myself understand what's the basis, the foundation for footprints, because we're expanding our approach beyond the traditional basis of footprints. I think the basis is this realization that we're all connected in webs of cause and effect. And that's true for every living thing on Earth. I think it's true for every particle in the universe. We're connected in webs of cause and effect. It means that an action or a change or an event, an occurrence somewhere in the universe, so therefore an action or a change in the life of a being on this planet, including humans, but including all plants and animals, ripples out to influence, in ripples of influence that cause changes in the lives of others. You can think about this just with ecosystems. You can think about it in physics, and you can think about it in the social networks that you're part of. And so this is the start. Now, one kind of cause and effect linkage that we tend to focus on in footprinting is the linkages of commerce. This is where my demand for a product or a service is seen to lead to more production of that product or service, and the activity that I buy from, it now has to demand more inputs from its suppliers, and so we have this demand ripple that goes out across supply chains. Obviously, I buy a pizza, therefore the pizzeria needs to buy more tomatoes and more dough and more cheese. So the tomato producer needs to buy more inputs and so on. The second piece is that these production and consumption activities can have environmental and or social impacts. They may mistreat their workers, they may pay their workers really well and train their workers. They may emit greenhouse gases, they may consume water, and so forth. The combination of these two facts, the ripple effects through the cause and effect chains of commerce and the environmental and social impacts of activities across production and consumption chains or life cycles, means that it leads to the kind of ripple effects that we call footprints. And I've noticed that my friends and colleagues in the field of life cycle assessment, we get so used to our models of footprints that we often hear ourselves say that these are comprehensive models of the causes and consequences of when we buy and sell and use products and services. They are comprehensive, they're not complete. They're comprehensive in the sense that they're large models, they're extensive models, but they're not complete. They've been missing some important ripple effects. Now, footprints are the negative consequences of production and consumption, We all have footprints as individuals, so do organizations, so do groups of people, such as cities and states and countries, continents. Humanity, of course, has a footprint. We tend to measure these, as you know, on an annual basis. I think of them as the burdens or cost of our presence, of our activity over the course of a year, whether it's an organization or an individual. And we have different dimensions of footprint: carbon, water, and health, biodiversity. We can also have slavery footprints and poverty footprints. Anything bad associated, any negative impacts associated with production and consumption activities, we all have these footprints because of our interconnectedness in commerce. Now, for this reason, we have tended to frame sustainability as, how do we shrink our footprint? How do we reduce our share of the mess? And that's a very important place to start. But I think, and it's urgent, it's essential, but it's not complete. You can discover this, something's wrong with this model if you look at the logical conclusions. First thing we know is that every product has each of these footprints. Every product has an energy, water, climate, and health footprint, and these social footprints that I've talked about. And those of us lucky to be able to make use of products and services throughout our life in a year, it really leads to the question, does this mean would be better off without me? Would there be less pollution on Earth, more life on Earth, if I had never been born? Most of us, if we just look at the truth of the footprint model and we take it as the whole story, we have to conclude that the planet would be better off without us. And of course, right now we can see that the web of life in many ways would be better off without the influence of humanity, unfortunately, year after year. But here's the next thing. We want to see ourselves as good, and more important, just as important, we want to be good. I think this is true about virtually everyone that I know. It seems to be true about most human beings, if not all of us. We want to at least see ourselves as good, and ultimately, we want to be good. The problem that we face is that it seems that this ripple effect truth and the footprint conclusion that I've given you seems to conflict with the goal to be good. How do we respond to that conflict? The way we seem to be responding up until now is to deny one or the other. We either, we have climate deniers and people who say there's something wrong with that model. I don't want to hear about these footprints. Or for those of us who feel that we can't deny the footprint reality, we say, well, I have to give up on being good. I have to feel guilty. I have to feel that humanity's a problem and that I'm a problem. Or we have to believe that we're a problem and then try not to think about it. We deny the reality of it. It's a pretty terrible place to be, but I think it's where we largely find ourselves these days. I think a truer solution comes when you actually create a synthesis of these two truths: the truth of the ripple effect and the truth of the human need to be good and to do good and to be contributors to the web of life that has given birth to us. And the synthesis is that we use our interconnectedness to send out ripples of good. It's actually incredibly simple. And this is where the handprint comes in. In addition to the footprint, not instead, but in addition to the footprint, we can conceptualize and operationalize the handprint. They're defined as positive impacts that we create relative to business as usual, measurable in footprint units. If you'd like, it's positive change on footprint kinds of impacts. This includes when you create a reduction in the human footprint. And that could be your piece of the footprint, or it could be someone else's piece of the footprint. It doesn't matter. If you're reducing the human footprint anywhere on Earth, that's a handprint. Also included is any other beneficial impacts that you cause that are measurable in footprint units. And a classic example is planting a tree, which absorbs CO2. this is creating positive benefits measurable in footprint units, kilograms CO2. It's not really a footprint reduction though, is it? It's just a benefit measurable in footprint units. So these are all handprints. And I've been talking about carbon handprints to go with your carbon footprint, but you could also have water handprints to compensate for and ultimately exceed your water footprint. You should, we all, I think, want to have health handprints bigger than our health footprint, biodiversity handprints, and so on. Even slavery and poverty handprints larger than our slavery and poverty footprints, so that there's less slavery on earth because you're here and the way you're living your life, the way the organization you're part of operates. The ultimate possibility, and it's really a very real one, is that we can give more than we take. We can be net positive, and that means that our thriving can promote the thriving of others. And it also, therefore, means that other people thriving will promote your thriving. Right now, with just the footprint only view, we have this conclusion, unfortunately, that anyone else coming out of poverty is great news for them, but bad news for the planet. And so it's bad news for you and me, because they're going to warm your climate, you know, and your children's climate. Instead, if we realize that each person's and each being's thriving can ultimately promote the thriving of others, then we realize we're not in this zero-sum game or context. We're in a situation where we need to promote the thriving of others, and that can be part of the solution, not, unfortunately, part of the problem. Now, Daniel mentioned Handprinter, and I'll just end by inviting collaboration as follows. Years ago, I did launch a platform, and you can please find it at handprinter.org if you haven't seen it. It's a place that's meant to help human beings understand their footprint a bit, and then understand handprinting and get active in handprinting, and ultimately pursue net positive and create handprints. You can, once you create an account, and it's free for all human beings to use. We do have a revenue model where there's a subscription fee for organizations, particularly for-profit organizations, but it's free for all individuals to use. So help yourself to an account. It's currently in 6 languages, and we have a volunteer core of translators. That would be one thing we could do, actually. If you don't see your language in Handprinter, we'd love to have you join our volunteer translator core, and we'd love to add your language to the platform. But here's a dashboard that shows that I have a handprint, I have a footprint, and I've got work to do here. My handprint is less than my footprint, so I'm not net positive yet. My good ratio is less than 1. But I do have some days, evidently, in September that are net positive, which is progress. I can look at climate, waste, water, ecosystems, and health, and we're interested to add more impact categories to the platform. The platform is open in terms of action ideas. Every action idea you'll find in Handprinter, and there are over 100 now and growing every day, has been suggested by a user, literally all of them. However, once you get an action idea, that's an important start. And it's a great way, by the way, for you to create a handprint, is suggest some actions. But the next bottleneck is we need an LCA, a life cycle assessment, to quantify whether that action is truly a handprint, under what conditions does it create progress, positive change, and how much. So we need LCAs of these actions, of action impacts. I've done the LCAs that are there so far, but that's a very narrow bottleneck. If we've got humanity proposing ideas and one guy who's quite busy, frankly, already, trying to do these LCAs of all these wonderful actions coming in. Right now, if you put an action in and it's approved as an action, it'll look like these two. It's a weighting modeling. It's approved by admin. It's available to be taken, so everyone can grow herbs or vegetables in a window box, but no one knows what the benefits are yet until we get those actions modeled. We see the solution to open source, to crowdsource the LCA models of handprint actions, just like we're crowdsourcing the action ideas. For this, we need an open, transparent, and continually improving body of assessments. And I like to see this as Wikipedia meeting LCA. So just like people can contribute to write Wikipedia articles about something they know about and are passionate about, and collaborate with other people to continuously improve those articles, we need assessments that operate the same way. And here's where I think a Fairforce handprinter partnership, it could be huge, could be wonderful. We're working on a tool at Handprinter to enable the modeling of the direct effects of actions. We call these reference flows in the LCA world. Then the back end links to best available transparent lifecycle assessment data. So if you say that creating carpooling will require less gasoline, you should be able to quantify the gasoline or petrol that's saved, and then the back end should tell us all what the consequences are for nature of conserving a gallon of gasoline. There need to be training and learning resources in the platform so that people who are interested to build these models know how to do it, can learn how to do it. And I think we need the human element there. We need a mentoring network so that people who are expert in building these kind of models can train newcomers. And so that people can learn and grow their skills. Ultimately, you should be able to get credentialed, certified that you've got the skills to build these models and to do LCAs in a basic way using the tools that we've got. And you should have a portfolio, a body of work that you can point to and show people, including companies, look what I've done. I've built the models for these actions. And with that, you'll have the ability, hopefully, to perform life cycle assessment work for for firms located where you live. So if we have people learning these skills all over the world, this will now mean that we have some LCA capable practitioners all over the world who can help the businesses and organizations wherever they live to understand their own footprints, to learn how to create handprints and to participate in this handprint activity. And it may indeed be a handprint marketplace, as we've also, I think, linking to the ideas that we heard just a moment ago. So let me stop there, thanking you for the opportunity to share these ideas real quick today, and love to hear questions and discussion.